When you add of this withdrawal limit of 20,000 naira per day and 100,000 naira per week for individuals, what was your reaction? How did you take that?
Mixed feeling, really, because I look at where we're coming from, I look at where we are, then I look at what we have as a country, whether this policy at this time will be beneficial to the majority of Nigerians. Looking at the present economic situation of household, individual and organization, then coming out with this kind of policy at this time, though a good way to go, but the timing is what I'm a bit not comfortable with.
Okay, so Mr. Shagu, do you share that sentiment too about the policy?
Not really. I am 1000% in support of the policy, if there's any such thing, and I have no issues with the timing at all. I don't think there's ever a good time to do anything that needs to be done. You just do it now. If there are possible negative implications and effects, then you respond and react as you go along. So there is nothing wrong, for example, with the CBN tweaking this along the way if they find maybe that the effect is not as desirous as what they had expected. But this policy is a good policy. In fact, what needs to happen going into the future is the government, not just the CBN now, but the federal government of Nigeria needs to be more consistent with international standards as regards redesign of currencies. In other countries around the world, the countries that we benchmark ourselves against, they do these things every 5, 6, 8 years, and there are reasons for it. So you have to be one step ahead of the game as far as counterfeiters are concerned. And in Nigeria, where our environment is peculiar, and you have people doing all sorts of strange things with cash because of the high level of corruption, you have to be even far more proactive, with stuff like this. So I have no issues with the policy. I cannot think of one single adverse effect that it will have on anybody. The people that most people are worried about, like I've been saying everywhere that I've had the opportunity, will not be affected by this. The poor man, the poor average Nigerian who is living below the poverty line has no worries about, those types of figures, because they don't spend that amount of money anyway. How many people can afford to spend 20,000 naira in a day? That the limits, the ATM limits, or in fact, in some cases, even in a week. Put that in context. The federal government of Nigeria has a conditional cash transfer scheme where they give people 5,000 per month. And they've interviewed people who have said, oh my God, this thing has changed my life. 5,000 naira per month changed their life, So that's context, So if we're saying 20,000 naira ATM withdrawal limit per day, POS withdrawal limits per day, yes, it will create some inconveniences, but those inconveniences will affect people that can comfortably go for alternative sources of transaction consummation. So for me, no issues.
All right, that is noted, and we'll still come back to that. So now I have to ask Chris Azo, do you feel the reason a lot of Nigerians are opposed to this new CBN policy is because of this human nature, which does not necessarily like change and does not like to conform to new things?
Clearly, I think this strategy by the CBN is actually anti-people. If you look at it, our economy is trying to technically come out of recession. The easiest way to move out of recession is to give the people the power to spend. The mantra is you spend your way out of recession. If people cannot have access to spend money, then you are drawing them back to worst case scenario of recession. Again, you can see that in terms of financial inclusion, we are not there yet. Pray, how many of the financial institutions, the banks and all that, do you have at the grassroots level? So if you now say that people should go electronic banking, go to the financial institution, what time does it take the average Nigerian in the rural areas to identify and get access to a bank or a banking institution? And people have the opinion that if I make my money, why will you restrict me from, having access to money I saved with a bank? So there's a question of trust deficit. Again, I look at it that if you allow this thing to linger, we get to a level that we start having naira black market. We know our country, the big guys will have access to these funds, one way or the other. They will collude with some bank staff and all that, and they, have a way around these restrictions. And they have this cash. Then what is going to happen? The poor man, the downtrodden on this, will begin to look for this money. And it means that you pay more to get more naira. So it draws us back to Stone Age, even to an extreme that you get to trade by barter, the barter system. If you don't have money and you have food items, you begin to barter. If I give you beans, you give me rice, you give me tomatoes and all that. So what kind of Stone Age banking and system, economic system is that? So I do not even see a real situation in this. It's going to draw us back to many centuries away from here. So for me, I'm just thinking like an ordinary Nigerian. After all, I live in the village. I operate from the grassroots. So that is the feeling out there. And it is actually the real feeling, because once people do not have access, first of all, to the money they made through thick and thin, through their suffering, and they build that trust between the banks and the saver. If you save money, you cannot have access to it. The banks are reneging on that, responsibility, losing the trust of the people. So if you create this scarcity that is artificial, it's going to affect.
You said that this policy is taking us many years back. A lot of countries that Nigeria look up to, all of them also have cash withdrawal policy, of course, in their own denomination. And these are countries that Nigeria look up to. So do you still feel like this truly is dragging us back rather than propelling us forward? Maybe being on the same level as these countries that we look up to? Do you need
I cannot hear you anymore.
Question?
The audio is not.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question now, because you mentioned that this new policy is taking us many years backward. But if we look at countries that Nigeria look up to, all of them also have cash withdrawal limits. And if you are looking up to a country, of course, you want to do things the way they do it too. So Nigeria also having cash withdrawal policy. Are you sure it's going to take us backwards?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We move from the early man age of gathering and trade by barter, and here we are. We are going back now. If people don't have access to that currency, what do they do? If I have tomatoes, and I want to eat yam, I should start looking for somebody that has yam to give me, because I cannot sell my tomato and make money. So that is why it's taking us way back to Stone Age, way back to the early men's stage of where you do trade by barter, where men and women are mere gatherers. It's a primitive thing. That's the opinion out there, and I must tell you. And I tell you something, this idea of paying more in terms of the extra withdrawal, it will favor the rich. For instance, if you have money that maybe that is bad money, you got to cook and cook. You don't feel anything if you pay 10% upon it to make the further withdrawal. Who suffers is the average Nigerian, the poor masses that toil on daily basis to make this money, and they do not have access to it. Look around you. You see that things, prices of goods have gone up astronomically. 20,000 naira is nothing for a household. So I'm saying that it's now 20,000 a day, and you calculate, you say it's 100,000 a month. I don't know how they got that mathematics, from where they got it. You understand?
We'll still be
So
coming
if you
back
have
to you.
daily,
So let me ask the people who I have here. Do you feel like truly this is taking us back in time to times where we do trade and barter? Do you feel like this cash withdrawal policy is actually taking us back rather than propelling us forward?
Right, not totally. Not totally, in the sense that we should be looking at limitation to cash withdrawal. But let's talk of where we're coming from before. We're coming from 500,000 naira daily withdrawal for individual to 20,000. That is about 4%. That is about removing like 96%, taking us to 4% of what we used to have. I think that change is too drastic at this time. Now, if you go to a typical market anywhere, you can't spend less than 10,000 as an household. You cannot spend less than 10,000
in a day or in a week.
In a market. If you go to any market that want to go and purchase goods for your house, you cannot spend more than 10,000.
Okay.
You can't spend less than 10,000. Right. So now taking us from 500,000 naira to 20,000 per day, I think is too drastic. Taking organization from 3 million daily to 500,000 naira daily is too drastic in my own opinion. Now I like the fact that even the CBN government mentioned the fact that as we go forward, it's going to tweak the limitation. Yes. I can bet you before January they will tweak that limitation. You know, then the POS operator. Now monetary policy must align with fiscal policy. You can see that even the finance minister she's basically not aware of what is happening. You are sending a policy that will affect unemployment. You are not carrying the driver of fiscal policy along, which is the finance minister, which affect unemployment. POS are employers of labor. POS are contributing to the GDP of this economy. Now you are taking the market out of them. Go to suburb of Lagos. They are the one operating banks, agent banking there. Now you are taking this business out of them. Out of this little money they are making daily, they are supporting their family. Now this business is totally gone. So how much will the POS holder now be dispensing? How much cash can that person keep to his or herself? You know, so the business of POS is gone, and they are taking employment from from that sector of the economy. So this policy is not really considering the employment implication of the CBN is not considering the fiscal policy aspect of this decision, in my own opinion. So the policy needs to be total, and as our guest online has mentioned, you know, we are coming from a recession. A lot of companies spend, you know, just to escape recession. Now you are taking employment out of people. You are squeezing the cash out of the economy. You know, so it will in a way instead of getting out of what's it called, depression or so. For me, when I said I'm not comfortable with the timing, it's not as if I don't like the policy. Don't get me wrong. A lot of companies are actually, a lot of countries are actually they actually have limitations when it comes to cash withdrawal. But for Nigeria, what is the level of our technological infrastructure? You know, take for example, I go to a supermarket, not even supermarket, a market. I did a transfer for a spare part holder. The guy refused to let me go until 1 hour's time, until he got allowed for his money. And I can never blame him. I spent 1 hour extra to leave his shop. You know, our IT infrastructure, we are not there yet. And here we're talking of China, we're talking of UK, when they have tight IT infrastructure. That if you do mobile banking or online banking, you are sure it's as fast as speed of light. It's not so in Nigeria. A lot of our IT guys are leaving the country, going elsewhere. And now you are coming with this policy. Instead of you to tackle all these IT issues we are having, the manpower issue we are having, you are coming with this drastic reduction. If the guy had gone from 500,000 naira to 50,000, yeah, maybe you can be talking for which is 10%. We are taking us from 500 to 20,000. That's cash squeeze, you know.
Okay, now I have to go to the man who is 1000% for this plan and all these challenges that have been stated. How do you feel we can move past these challenges and still have something manageable for the economy and for the people?
I think, first of all, we need to put things in context. We need to remember, and it's not like we don't know, but I think we've forgotten that this policy, this reduction in the withdrawal limits, is, as has been clearly stated by the CBN, is temporary. Just like my colleague has said, you know, we're coming from a 500,000 naira daily limit to 20,000. There's a reason for that, and we all know what the reason is. The CBN is trying to bring the cash that is out there into the banking system. This cannot, look, you have about 2.7 trillion naira cash in circulation. Out of that 1.7 trillion is in people's pillows and soakaways. That can't be good for your economy. It's horrible, right? So what the CBN is simply trying to do is that within the window, within which the new currencies will become available, and when the old currencies will cease to be legal tender, they're trying to ensure that as they're mopping up the old currency, people can't replace it by going to withdraw the new ones within that window, December 15th to January 9th. That's, you know, and for me, it's even too wide a window. Why allow people almost another, is that 3 weeks? December 15th, January, yeah, about almost a month, within which you can actually simply take the cash that you have kept in a sockaway because you don't want it in the banking system. Let's not forget that. The reason there's so much cash outside of the banking system significantly is not only financial inclusion problems. It is that it's corruption based. It's that people are deliberately keeping cash because cash cannot be tracked, right? And you know, in any system where you can't measure a thing, you can't improve it. So the cash that is outside the banking system becomes slush funds for anything: terrorism, money laundering, drugs, not to talk of political rascality. You know, so all of these things are problems that cash, having so much volumes of cash outside the banking system, is enabling. So what the CBN is trying to do is to rein all of that cash in. So after the, you know, once the new cash is now fully in circulation and the old one is no longer legal tender, you will see that the CBN will increase those limits back. If you ask me, if I was in charge of this policy, I will not take it back up. You know, because, you know, you have to think about what is in the best interest of the overall economy. Like, I don't know whether you are the one that said it or himself. Look, if you go to the UK, let me use the US as an example. Before you will see a $100 bill, $100 in a transaction, you struggle. And if you go to any point of sale, any outlet, whether it's supermarket, you know, a car shop, whatever, and you go and spend $1,000 in cash, they are going to ask you for an explanation. You fill a form. That's how much those systems deplore cash. Cash is untraceable and therefore is subject to corruption and theft and all of those things. So those are the things that, you know, the CBN is trying to fight against. I can't understand for the life of me why anybody will be opposed to that. Yes, I understand the issue of concerns about access to, you know, transaction and all of that, especially by people that are not financially included. But, you know, for me, it's that opposition is even counter intuitive, because the essence of this policy in the first place is to increase financial inclusion. So if I was given an example recently, I have worked with it, you know, of course, we all work with people of different economic levels. I've bought yams. I've paid with transfer. Yam. I bought yam inside traffic. I paid with transfer. There was, you know, this long hold up, and the guy was just, and I just said, guy, how far? And we negotiated, and I did a transfer, and he kept walking along my car until he saw his alert, and then he saw it. So if a situation like what he experienced had happened and he didn't see the alert, I would have parked somewhere. I'll find somewhere away that I will not disturb traffic, and I'll park. But these things work, you know. So the incidences where transaction failures happen are nowhere near as many as they used to be. So these things are getting better. We have to encourage our people to adopt cashless. It's very important for economy. It will drive economic growth. Why? The velocity of transactions is enabled and enhanced when you are doing it electronically. The kind of things that I can do with cash. How many times can I use the same cash versus how many times can I transfer that same money? You know, that's what it means by velocity. So you can actually create more value when you have the money in electronic form. And right now, you will be surprised to discover that in spite of the fact that the cashless policy has been in effect now for almost 10 years, since 2014,
Yes.
a survey done by Statista recently shows that 75% of payments at payment points across the country is still in cash. We have a big problem on our hands. You know, people are resisting these things, and I dare say that a lot of that resistance is coming from an unwillingness to be accountable and to be traceable. So for me, I keep saying we must encourage this. The people that we think will suffer from this, I must keep repeating, don't have this problem. You know, so the CBN is not saying don't spend cash now. They're just limiting the volume you can have. So the yam guy, what's he going to do when he gets his payment? He's going to make payments to sustain his life. How much does he spend in a day?
And let us even do with that scenario of yam that you've mentioned.
Yeah.
One of the key things that we have to take from that is security.
Absolutely.
Because the guy gets in his money electronically before
Absolutely.
someone would rob him, take that away from him. That's going to take a while.
Absolutely.
So I have to direct this question to Mr. Azza now, because I'm sure almost everyone would have known someone whose ATM card got stolen and everything in their bank account, all gone. And with this policy, although this policy is not on is not on internet banking yet, but do you not feel it is going to be beneficial? Because if someone goes to the ATM with your stolen ATM card, if you have like close to 1 million or more in your bank account, luckily the only thing that will be deducted is just 20,000 naira, and you could go to the bank immediately to block your ATM card. Do you see this as one of the advantages? Because it seems like you do not like this policy at all, but when it comes to security, are you embracing that part of this policy? Do you need me to repeat the question?
He's not hearing you at all.
Hello?
Do you need me to repeat the question, Mr. Azza? Because
Okay,
now
is
we're
this for
talking
me?
about security.
Can you come
that
again, please?
This CBN policy is putting in place, because we all know people who have lost their life savings to theft because their ATM card got stolen. But with this policy, with your ATM card, the only amount of money they will be able to withdraw is just 20,000 naira, and all the money in your bank account is saved. So easily you could go to the bank and tell them to block your bank account, because it seems you are like 100% opposed to this plan. But are you going to be embracing the security aspect of it? If nothing but the security aspect of it, is this something you are welcome to?
Yes, I understand where you're coming from. You know, you cannot cut your nose to spite your face. You know, if even if you don't bring up this mechanism, you can as well arrange with your bank to stop transaction after 50 or 20 or 50,000. It happens. Okay. So, but what the point we are making is that, for instance, the gentleman talking about making payment, you know, while in the bus or in a moving vehicle. Good. You are lucky that the transaction, you know, was successful. What if it wasn't successful? Something happened to me today when I was flying from Anambra to Abuja. I needed to pay my taxi driver. But the issue is that even the ATM I went to, you know, rejected that payment, rejected my card. I couldn't do anything. It was somebody, you know, a friend I saw at the airport that bailed me out. So what we are saying is that we have this incessant problem of failure, of the network failure. You know it. If you are in that, if it happens, assuming we all want to, you know, embrace the online banking and whatever, to abide by the cashless policy. We have issues with our networks. It's been epileptic here. It doesn't just work. The point we are making is that we cannot say come and go at the same time. We move gradually. In fact, admittedly, the CBN governor has said it cannot be hard and fast rule, that they can tweak it. That's what we read in the news. So it's like it's becoming born again now. So let's move gradually so that we reduce the shock on the people. The gentleman too was talking about cashless policy when it started. You will recall that 2011, 2012, down the line, it's been a lot of hiccups. They start at some time, they see that it's not working, they withdraw it and give people leverage and all that. So this back and forth is not a good policy. They were talking about sanctions and whatever. There are no clear conditions for these sanctions. People don't even know what the punishments will be, what the sanctions will be in specific terms. These are the realities we are facing. So you do not run a system like that. You must, as a government of the people, give the people that leverage. Do enough enlightenment. Count one step to the other, to another. That's the point we are making. If not, if you look back, you see that this thing has not worked over. Even the cashless policy has been, that it has experienced a lot of hiccups over time. And you are looking at a situation where people have gone through hell in this country, economically, financially, in terms of their lives and livelihood. This is a period that people are trying to come out of this flooding and other disasters. People are still being, frustrated by COVID and other diseases. Our economy is very weak now. People are suffering. We do not add to that suffering. The insecurity you want to call, this mechanism will bring even worse insecurity. It will get to the level of the Hobbesian state of nature, which is short, nasty, and brutish. People will begin to commandeer
millions of naira in cash to these terrorists, and then it goes untraceable. But with this limit, you can't even get more than 100,000 naira per week. And if they are demanding of millions, if they are asking you for millions, and you have to transfer to their bank account, at least that bank account has a face. You know the face, you know the person that you are transferring the money to. And would this not perhaps facilitate tracing? So in terms of security, would you not say that this CBN policy has already checked and ensured that there is security when it comes to payment of ransom and trying to trace where the money is going? Because if you park 150 million naira in cash, it's gone. You can't trace it anymore. You don't know the person you probably even give it to. But if you had sent it to one bank account, then perhaps it might be traceable and they might be able to get hold of the person who has put another person in, who is a captor. Do you not feel like this policy has already checked that?
It will not, because already even the ransom takers are devising other strategies, of making demands. People are even, they are even asking for payments through other currencies, through hard currency and all that. And I tell you, if you even perpetuate the suffering of somebody that has been kidnapped, if there is even sometimes nothing to offer, because the kidnapper is not just an ordinary person. If they don't find the money, they kill. So you have to consider that. Who is losing? If there's demand for money, you don't have the cash to give, then what happens? Then you are telling the family that have somebody in captivity that the best thing is not to pay money and to lose their loved ones. Is that the logic we are bringing here? They should think out of the box and look for ways of covering security. They shouldn't be just having one-way thinking, line of thought. We should balance the thought like reasonable people. What does it pay you that you have your person in captivity and you
else
have
to uphold this
money.
law
Even
that
to
ransom payment is illegal in Nigeria. So by the time you can't even transfer to the captors, then this, in a way, is it not helping to uphold that law that we have, that ransom payment is illegal?
something now. In other countries, even overseas, you can in the US you can still withdraw up to $100-200. How much is it compared to 20,000 naira? In the UK, you can still withdraw up to £100-200. How does it compare to 20,000 naira? We have to be reasonable and balanced in our thoughts. That's the point I'm trying to make. And I'm speaking for the poor masses out there, not for the elite. This idea, go and find out. This 20,000 will not work for the rich. This 500,000 will not work for the rich. They have a way of circumventing the system and getting what they want. It's the poor masses that will always suffer. Even if you say there's a penalty, extra charge of 10% or whatever, what are we talking about? When somebody gets slush fund and you say it pays 10%, in fact, some of these people, drug peddlers, and 419ers, they can even send you money and you remove 10% and give them the balance. They don't care. Hello? That's the point I'm making.
Because
so
if you are withdrawing more than the stipulated amount you're supposed to withdraw weekly, then you have to pay like 5% or 10%, depending on if it's individual or organization. So anyone who is willing to let go of 5% of their money, for example, you want to withdraw 1 million naira and 5%, 50,000 naira is gone from your 1 million naira. Perhaps these two could help. Maybe it's going to be security agencies now, because if you are willing, you are willing to forego of 5% of your money. Do you not feel like this in a way would also help?
If somebody is taking advantage of a slush fund or money gotten criminally, some of those crooks, they can even give you 10 million.
When I'm on TV, when I'm on national TV, and when I'm on national platforms, we must remember that this is also a public enlightenment thing. So yes, I don't run commentaries based on my sentiments on how I feel alone. I work to inform the public. And I can tell you, like, I have all sorts of problems with what my gentle colleague is saying, because it's almost beginning to sound like we're seeking to misinform the public. Look, apart from the penalties that you pay when you withdraw, so just like you are saying, one of the objectives of this mechanism is that when you say, oh, there's a 5% or 10% penalty to be paid when you go above those limits, it's a flag. That's what they're called. So just like you are saying, if I now decide that, look, like he's saying, I'm a money bag, or I'm a money launderer, or I'm a drug person, so I don't care, because the money is slush money anyway, it's illegal funds, and therefore I'm willing to pay the 10%, without even thinking about it. I get reported to the NDLEA and to the EFCC under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Those reports get sent, and so it's now it's a different thing to now go into the argument of whether or not those agencies will do anything with that information. But the information goes, and if you continue to flaunt those withdrawal limits and you continue to pay those penalties, you are attracting attention to yourself. And I believe that a lot of those people are not stupid. If you are smart enough to be involved in drug trade and you are doing it successfully, you are intelligent in a counterproductive way. So you won't also want to attract attention to yourself, and you will comply. So I think I would have loved to ask my gentleman there on to explain what exact negative consequence the poor man on the street will suffer from this. I want to know it, because I don't get it. I keep repeating, and it's almost as if nobody is listening. The guys that we are speaking for do not spend 100,000 naira per week. They don't earn 100,000 per month. They don't earn 100,000 in 2-3 months. There are people that have never seen 50,000 naira cash in their lives. Cash. right? So this policy is targeted at people in the middle class and the upper middle and upper class who are flagrantly abusing the use of cash and are damaging the economy. Those are the people. Why do you think the House of Representatives always reacts to these things? They've already issued a threat. In fact, as if they don't know that they don't have the power to stop the CBN, they've issued did a resolution to tell the CBN to immediately stop this policy. Why do we think you think it's because of the masses? No, it's because they are the ones that are going to be affected the most.
And according to the CBN governor, the president is very, very happy with this development.
Absolutely, and I also think one needs to speak to something he said earlier about the fact that the fiscal policy people were not even aware. They were not carried along. Why do we think that is? You know, do we think that happened by accident? It was a very, because there's a subtle battle going on over certain of these issues. And we must not forget that we're talking about Nigeria, and we know what happens in this country with high corruption. You know, not the petty corruption, not the guy at the fuel pump that is depriving you of 500 naira by refusing to wipe the meter when he's about to sell. That's petty theft, it's petty corruption. We're talking about high corruption, right? The people that are involved in this are high-powered people, highly placed in society. So that decision by the CBN to go ahead with this policy without carrying the fiscal authorities along, you know, condemnable as it might sound, because obviously conventional wisdom in economic management will say that fiscal and monetary policy authorities must always be aligned. You know, so I agree with that. But there was a reason behind that. We should think deeply about why that happened. Why did the president, knowing that the Minister of Finance was not aware, still, why did he go ahead to approve that policy? We should think about that.
So same thing happened with the redesigning too.
Yeah.
Yes, the minister said she was not aware that
they were not carried along.
They were not carried along. Also, same thing happened there.
Yes.
But then I think we have to give kudos to the newly reappointed deputy governor of CBN, one of them, Aisha Ahmed, who addressed the Senate panel because they called them to give explanation of this new policy. And I feel she was able to convince the House beyond reasonable doubt, because she explained that the policy was first introduced in 2012 during former President Goodluck Jonathan administration, and she explained that the cashless policy being fully implemented by CBN now, it's not new, it is something that has always been on ground. And she said that the required steps in that direction was taken in 2012. Lagos State was first used as the pilot scheme and later extended to Abuja and 6 other states in 2013. Because I know that Mr. Chris raised a point that it failed, it was a trial and error. But do we not feel like during that time they would have used it to perfect all the things that need to be tweaked, everything that needs to be fine-tuned?
It didn't fail, and I think that's another, you know, so that's why I keep saying, look, this is a public enlightenment show. There was never a failure. What simply happened was there was a pilot policy that started in Lagos, and then the pilot was extended to 6 other states, and then it went national. And as it was going along, based on the feedback, the data that the CBN was getting at each phase, they were tweaking the policy, especially the withdrawal limits and all of that. And we must also not forget, and I think this also needs to be addressed, yes, we have technology platform issues. We have on the network side and on the power side. So we have an unusually high failure rate. Typically in technology, your expectation of uptime must be 99.9. I know that in certain instances we have sometimes 98, sometimes 95, you know, percent, which is bad, you know, from a statistical point of view. However, it's getting better, and we will not say because we have challenges along the road, we will not move. It is a lazy man that says there is a lion on the street, therefore I will not go out. That's scripture I'm quoting, right? So we must start from somewhere and continue along the way as things are being improved and tweaked and getting better. But to say that we should not run this either the redesign or to try and rein in cash outside because of our fears of technology failure or because of our fears of what will happen to the average man on the street, I feel, you know, it's losing a picture of it's losing the big picture.
Okay, all right. And then we also, I just have to mention this very quickly before we go on a break. We have withdrawal limits like almost everywhere around the world. For example, in Europe, we have 200 to 300 euros per day. That is approximately 95,000 naira per day. But since it is said that this policy will still be reviewed, perhaps we might still have something like this in Nigeria. And it is also interesting to note that in France, If you are paying with over 50 euro, it might not be accepted. Then you are required to pay with a credit card or a debit card, whichever one you have with you. In America, the withdrawal limit is from $300 to $1,000 per day, but this is all dependent on the type of bank you are using and what thing you subscribe to. And we also have in China, and it's also interesting to know that China implemented this 1st of March 2022, that it is only going to be 2,000 yuans that they will allow private individuals to withdraw, and that is about 130,000 naira a day. But then they have to give 50,000 yuans for families who have children studying abroad, which also came with a clause, because there are some people in China who would take the money outside the country, go invest in real estate. So they are really trying. We have to say that this is not something just in Nigeria. A lot of countries that we look up to are also doing this.